Hello, I'm delighted to be with everybody today talking about sustainable research. This was something that Ana Alvarez from PepsiCo and myself set up at the beginning of 2013. And it was really based on something that both of us were passionate about. And we wanted to see how we could do research in a better way, particularly in the emerging markets like Brazil. Brazil provides a world of opportunity. It's twice as big as Western Europe, and when you have a look at the population, we've got over 200 million people living there. We've got more mobiles than people, and Brazil is the fourth largest internet user in the world and the second largest when it comes to Facebook users. It has over 2.3 trillion dollars at GDP, so that makes it the 8th largest country in the world. And of course, we've got the World Cup and the Olympics coming up. When Anna spoke to me about thinking about the approach to sustainable research, which I was interested in having first started working in Brazil with her, she talked about what PepsiCo look at from a company perspective, which is performance with purpose. And this is something which is really important to people at PepsiCo. And each of the different functions had been tasked with having a look at how they could bring this to life within their own function. And Anna was looking at a way that she could start to think about sustainability within PepsiCo research and insight. In particular, there was a need to understand the emerging middle classes, and these are becoming increasingly important to people within Brazil, but also in other countries at the moment. And it's difficult to get to reach these people. Within Brazil, of course, these people are in favelas. It's not easy to go in and research with them, and they are not necessarily on online panels. However, they are people who are using mobile phones, so that is something that is useful for us to think about from a research perspective. So the big question was, how can we conduct research appropriately in these new emerging markets? And we really wanted to start afresh. We wanted to think about things differently. So we wanted to change some of the things that we felt could be improved from a market research perspective. One of them was that there tends to be an unequal relationship between people that are being researched and us as researchers. So we wanted to create a more respectful relationship with these members. We also felt that there was a need to understand the network and the community and not just the individual. So we wanted to employ a new approach called customer networks to this sustainable research. It was really important for Anna that the results were socialized and actioned. And in fact, the general manager at PepsiCo said that they were looking for this research to be a change agent for PepsiCo, to enable people within the organization to really start to understand this emerging class, which was not one that they had much knowledge about. And of course, this taps into the corporate agenda. We've seen this with performance with purpose, but from a human sustainability perspective. So this was very much where we were looking to put the effort, and around the thought of education. So how does the sustainable research ecosystem work? Well, there are three parties. There's obviously the agency and the client, but then there's the customer network community. And what we've done is we've gone into 3 different communities in Sao Paulo, where we've worked with the community leaders to find the members of the community. So that's the way that we've been building up this sustainable research ecosystem. And there were two things that were really important to us in terms of understanding what was at the foundation of sustainable research. The first was that this research should give back in the long term. So it needed to be sustainable, and it wasn't just about a short-term incentive to participants. The second thing was that this should be about research rather than marketing principles. This wasn't about PepsiCo trying to become prominent within the community's minds. This was about PepsiCo actually being more invisible and understanding through research how these people lived. So the first challenge that we faced was around disclosure. We had the community network, and within this we'd got the community leaders who we'd recruited and our real-time experience reporters. So we wanted these people to be able to tell us about their experiences in real time. We also had PepsiCo and we had Mesh. So the question was, how could we be transparent? How could we have an equal relationship if we wanted to also maintain our research integrity? And what we did was we decided that we would speak to the community leaders, and they are very aware that this is PepsiCo that Mesh is working with. They've been invited to PepsiCo headquarters and they've been involved in meetings there. However, we decided that when it came to the people who were reporting for us, it would be Mesh that would be prominent. And this was in order to avoid any bias that we might get from the research. The second challenge was to make the research truly actionable. And what we did here was we chose some of the most innovative techniques to put within the sustainable research approach. So once we'd recruited the community members, we then applied some different research methodologies to find out different aspects that we were interested in understanding. So we really wanted to understand which touch points people were coming into contact with, which media channels, and we used real-time experience tracking, which is a proprietary approach to do this. We also wanted to understand more about the decision-making that people were going through, and in particular what the intergenerational influences had been from people that were now transitioning very quickly into the middle classes. So we used the customer network approach for that. Our boardroom is an online forum, so we can use that to understand specific topics very quickly. And we've also run a live meeting where people from PepsiCo have met members of the community and spoken to them to understand more about their lives. So we wanted to look at how these members were living, and what we have here are a few stills from the sustainable research video. I think you'll have been sent these as well in terms of the actual short 1-minute video. But what we have here is you can see some of the community members. So here you can see Donna Francesca, who's leading a community where they're trying to fight against domestic violence. You can also see on the next slide capoeira, and this is being run as classes at Campo Limpo, another one of the communities. And here we saw how one of the boys who'd seen his father shot dead, and the family have other health and drug problems. But capoeira was really helping him in his life to have some more positive focus. Then you can see a photograph of one of these sports courts that was in, the fence here is in need of repair and is dangerous. Now, this is where these children play football, and football helps them feel as though they can move out of the favelas and they could have a chance to play for Brazil. So it's a very important activity for the children. and Campo Limpo needs money in order to help it to restore these the court that they have. MESH is looking to take interns from some of these communities so we can help them to have a career in market research. So there are those kind of opportunities that we can give to people. And at the bottom you can see Patricia, who's one of our real-time experience reporters, and why she was saying that it was good to take part in the research. And she felt motivated that this was going to not only reward herself, but it was going to reward the community as well. So what are the sustainable rewards that are going to the communities? Well, each individual person is receiving their own reward. However, each community is also getting a benefit. So one of the communities wants to build a recycling station, so we're helping them with that. Another wants manicure training for members of the community so that they can earn a living. And the third, you've just seen, Campo Limpo, where they want to repair the sports fence. When it comes to the sustainable benefits to PepsiCo, this is really about getting very much closer to this particular audience that's becoming more and more important to the company, and really acting as a change agent by bringing members of PepsiCo closer to the communities so that they can understand much more about their lives and then are able to take better decisions in terms of marketing and new product development. From a MESH perspective, we are able to get better data. And this is because instead of just working with our participants over 1 week, which is what we do typically, here we're able to speak to them for 4 weeks to understand much more about their experiences. And we can also go back to them time and time again, which means that we can build up much more knowledge about these individuals. Some of the other benefits, and you'll see here a photograph of one of the walls from, this one is from Campo Limpo, include, as we mentioned in the video, MESH having an intern from these communities. But it also helps MESH offices in other countries. We have an office in Sao Paulo, but we also have them in New York and London, to understand more about our global purpose. We do believe that it's important for people in MESH to be contributing globally and not just thinking about their own offices. We also think that it's going to be opening up sponsorship opportunities for PepsiCo and other companies. Clearly, what we can't do is to confuse the research with the client, because this could bias it. However, there's no reason why MESH could not invite clients and contacts that we know to help these communities to either sponsor the football shirts or to help in other ways. And if we do this and these clients then come in and start to work in a grassroots level with the communities, we can see what difference that could make from the research perspective in terms of people's understanding of the brands. Of course, there have been difficulties along the way, and here are just a few of them that we faced. The first was finding the right leaders. Originally, we were looking at getting 5 leaders, but in the end, we found 3 really good leaders, and we used them to recruit more members. In fact, many of these communities are serving 200,000 or more members, so that was an easier way for us to do this. We also found that leaders, whilst they were very good recruiters of our members, were not necessarily good at monitoring compliance. These people are very busy, they've got lots of things to do, and they hadn't got the time really to be chasing their community members to make sure that they were conducting the research. So this was then picked up by MESH, but we do believe that in future we might be able to get members themselves to help us with this part of the research approach. Another area that we learned about along the way was communicating rewards and making them tangible. What happened early on was we had meetings with the community leaders because we needed to understand what was important to them. You could see that there were different things from the manicure training to the sports fence. So we needed to understand that. But in future, we believe that once we've done that, we need to be creating small goals along the way. So maybe 2 people get trained in manicure training if people achieve these milestones along that journey. So we've been trialing new approaches in terms of making the rewards more tangible. Getting participation was something else that was important, and this we found was best through actually phoning people up, going in person, speaking to them. Some of these people did have difficulty in reading and writing, so again it was important to be there to really help them through the research process. But of course they were using mobile phones, so that meant that we could capture data from them. So what were some of the actionable results that came out? Well, one of them that we found was that there is a whole different concept of what family is about now. Social interaction and families are particularly important within Latin America and specifically within Brazil. But nowadays the concept of family is changing, with people moving from one location to another, and people separating and divorcing, and actually we're now finding that that family could be represented by a father Skyping his child in another place. So some very different concepts of family from only a generation ago. We also saw some very different ways of shopping and how important shopping was and how important that was to people's relationships. There was a lot of planning going on before people went shopping. It was a social event, so we found a lot out about that particular touch point. And the third one to mention here is how important purchase was, even for something like soft drinks. This was a very engaging and persuasive experience, and this is because now, perhaps for the first time for these people, they have a much greater choice of brands, and therefore choosing those brands and showing which ones they identify with has become a very engaging and persuasive experience for them. So just some tips for those who are interested in conducting sustainable research. The first that we would say is to think big, but to start small. We believe that this approach could work in many different markets. We've worked out that of the 7 billion population, there's probably about 1.7 billion who are what we would call the forgotten, that really will be the people that we need to understand in the future. People that it's hard to reach because they're not on online panels, some who can't read or write and are below the poverty level. But we started small, and we started just in Sao Paulo, and we're now refining the model and looking to expand that into other areas of Brazil and beyond that to other countries. Allow time. It takes a lot longer than you think when you're trying to innovate. And we soon found that we had to work to the rhythms of the community leaders and the communities. So we've learned an enormous amount from that, which will make it much quicker to roll out. But if you're trying to look at a more sustainable way of working with research, then we definitely suggest that you allow more time. Also, to be flexible. Things haven't worked out in the ways we expected, but other things have worked out much better. and therefore we needed to keep adjusting the model to enable it to work both for us and for the communities and PepsiCo. It really helped setting up a formal project structure so that from the beginning we set down the milestones and the success factors, and we also ensured senior involvement because when you're doing something like this and other priorities come up, it can be very difficult to maintain the focus. So making sure that we had senior involvement was important for us. I think more than anything, there was a need to be dedicated and persistent, and remember that this was going to pay back in the long term. This wasn't about doing something quickly. It was all about forging relationships. And this is really important for brands to understand as well, because community members would criticize brands that would just come in, paint a logo on the wall and go out. So this is about something that we're really working on for the long term. And these are the benefits that we see being delivered. So in terms of the communities, we feel that it's not just about ways to improve community life, but we would like to be looking at how we can offer career and educational opportunities. For some of these members, we were setting up email addresses for them for the first time, and we're helping them in ways that would give them capabilities of working and understanding and researching themselves on the internet. When it comes to clients, we feel that the approach that we've taken really does provide a much deeper understanding of people's lives. So everything from the live event to looking at people qualitatively through the customer network interviews that we did, and quantitatively through the real-time experience tracking where we were able to pick up the touch points people were coming into contact with, enabled us to have a much richer view of people's lives, and this is helping PepsiCo to make better decisions about their marketing investment. And from a research perspective, we feel it's a more respectful way of conducting research. Mesh and PepsiCo do voluntary work with these communities. We get to know these people, and of course we're collecting data from them over time. But it's very different when you are doing a debrief about people you know and you're seeing the quantitative and qualitative data coming together. So we do feel that this provides a different way to tap into this emerging middle class, which is becoming more and more important for people around the world. So thank you very much indeed for listening to our approach to sustainable research. I'd be delighted to take any questions about it.